we are going to take up assessment of student performance in the online learning environment. Now, with respect to this assessment of student performance, which is an integral part of any teaching learning process, whether the teaching learning is in a physical mode, that is face-to-face contact mode, or it is in the online learning environment, the assessment is essential and integral part of any teaching learning process. Without this, many of the purposes remain unachieved or unfulfilled. And this system of assessment, which has been in vogue, is under criticism for years together. It cannot satisfy one and all, and National Education Policy in 2020 also focused on some of the changes which should be brought into the assessment of students' performance. And the very first thing which you will observe is that at present the system in vogue is not able to assess the higher level capabilities of the learners. For example, ability to analyze, ability to evaluate, ability to create, those cognitive skills which are involved in problem solving, those are not being assessed. And 80 to 85% of the questions, where we have taken up 4 to 5 studies in the area of content analysis of examination papers, and we found that 80 to 85% of the questions, they only test remembering and understanding level of the learner rather than assessing application and applying and higher than applying level learning outcomes. Though general education doesn't focus much on learning outcomes, but in technical education, with National Board of Accreditation making compulsory for the institutions to go in for accreditation, it is that this is becoming an essential part of technical education system, that many of the institutions where the programs have been accredited, they have actually implemented the system of learning outcomes. And we all know in the previous session, we have discussed program outcomes, course outcomes, and learning, lesson level learning outcomes. And we have been following Bloom's taxonomy with respect to the learning outcomes. But this doesn't get implemented in many of the general education system and those institutions where accreditation has not been done. Then the policy also talks in terms of bringing changes in the assessment procedure, pedagogy curriculum, which we will not touch much upon. Then the system which is in vogue at present is norm-referenced system, where we try to compare the performance of one student with the other. But higher education institutions need to move away from that norm-referenced assessment to the criterion-based assessment or criterion-referenced assessment, where we try to think in terms of to what extent those learning outcomes, if there are, say, 5 course outcomes, whether a student has achieved 3 course outcomes, 2 course outcomes, or 1 course outcome, or all the 5 course outcomes. So it has not to be relative performance, but it is the performance with respect to a criterion established for that. Then continuous formative assessment needs to be brought into the system rather than focusing more on the summative assessment. Then the purpose should be on improving learning and then testing the application of whatever knowledge the student has gained. Then the teachers need to be more innovative and they need to be given freedom to bring in new techniques of assessment to assess the student performance. And then the policy talks about integration of technology in assessment, because when we are offering programs online and there are more than say 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 or 10,000 students taking up a course, then technology can play an important role in assessing the student performance. Even when we started with the technical education system, we had about 30 students in each branch, and those 30 students in the class, they were, and teacher was able to manage everything. But now when the class size has increased, there are large number of students, and sometimes we have 180, 200 students sitting in a class. Again, then when we are in a physical mode also, technology can play an important role in assessing the student performance, which may be during the process or at the end of the process. And thus, the policy has taken into consideration the establishment of National Educational Technology Forum. And it also highlights the role of various agencies at national level, which includes, we are all familiar with National Testing Agency because they are involved in on the SWAM platform, as well as NIT modules which are being offered to the technical teachers. Then there is a Center for PERC which has been set up, AICTE, then school boards and other identified bodies like IGNU and so on, which can take up the task of designing and implementing assessment. And especially this is design of competencies. So the competencies which have been enlisted in terms of program outcomes, course outcomes, they need to be assessed. Portfolios of the students can be maintained, and one can see the progress made by the students over a period of time. And rubrics to bring in more objectivity in assessment needs to be done. And then if we are going to measure our students' personality or learning style, or we are going to measure other like leadership or team building assessment, we can go in for that, then standardized tests would be required for that purpose. And this is not only gaining and collecting data, but also trying to analyze the collected data to identify strengths, weaknesses, the areas of improvement, and so on. So this is where the National Education Policy has made significant recommendations with respect to the change that needs to be brought into the system of assessment. Now, coming to we have already seen this, that there are programs consisting of courses, and courses consisting of various modules. So why assessment? That was the first question which I had posed to you in the performer. So I'll be now going on to where we can see the responses before I take up the responses myself. So you can see here so we have got 30 responses. So let's quickly, now you can see we want to check the performance of the learner to identify the areas where we have to work. So identify the areas, drawbacks, and provide the corrective feedback to the learner and improve upon that. Revision and knowledge level evaluation. So you would like to evaluate to what extent the person has acquired the desired knowledge. Feedback to students you can provide based upon your assessment, and you can also benchmark for improvement, with the point has been taken up, to check improvement in the knowledge, skills, or attitudes, and to overcome fear. Okay, overcome fear. Fear of what? Fear of assessment or fear of what? It's not mentioned. If the participant would like to clear, to check the understanding, fine. Measure the knowledge, skills, identify the strengths and weaknesses, fine. To know, okay, to know much the student has understood, to know how much the student has understood the concept. So how much learning has taken place, and going to apply, how students are going to apply that learned knowledge. And then explain the concepts bit. Okay, identify gaps, this has been taken up. Measure and compare the academic achievement of students across different levels and context. Okay, you can take up studies where you can take a comparative study of the achievement of the learners, and together about student performance or progress, fine. Make judgments, fine. Okay, this is the where you are making judgment about their learning process. So whether they are following the appropriate procedure or methodology to retain the knowledge and recall the knowledge when it is needed and apply the knowledge when a situation demands. So the purpose to gather relevant information about student performance, find progress, interest to make judgment about the learning. Okay, and if you are getting that students are not learning, maybe teacher himself is taking the correctives. Okay, to check performance to promotion. Okay, promotion also, more clear review of contents. Okay, checking student caliber. Okay, you can check the student caliber in terms of his intelligence, in terms of his current knowledge with respect to a current subject, identify student actual expected standards. Okay, so what is minimum, what is expected, and to what extent the student has attained that standard. Fine. Can find understanding level of student. Fine. To make active involvement of students, to inculcate create problem solving skills. Okay, through assessment you can do that. Okay, help students identify strengths. Fine. Performance and progress. Fine. Improves the quality. Okay, another purpose which has come here is that one can improve the quality of teaching if the students are not understanding or have not been able to attain the course outcome. It provides the feedback to the teacher to bring changes in the teaching learning process to facilitate the attainment of those course outcomes. Uh, the learning objective also is a factor. What a teacher is helping students come to know, be able to do is assess to provide data to refine plan. Okay, so you can improve upon your instruction. Students can improve upon their learning. Administrative research can be okay. So what additional resources are required, which subject sequence has not been, so you can provide feedback to the administration for taking up policy decisions with respect to strengthening of labs, workshops, strengthening of the human resources, or providing digital technologies in the classroom to improve upon. So even the assessment would help that provide the feedback. Okay, so good. I think we have got a good number of responses. All are correct because you have all the experience. And so, in nutshell, I would simply say that the very first purpose is to why do we assess before starting the course? We can see whether our learners are ready for the course or not. So pre-assessment can be carried out before starting a program, and we can also see whether the subject we are going to teach to the learners, to what extent that knowledge, skills, or attitudes which we want to develop among them, or we have to create conditions to enable them to achieve those course outcomes or learning outcomes, to what extent those learning outcomes are already available with the learners. They might have over the period of time have attained those learning outcomes prior to joining the course. So what is their level of attainment with respect to what you are going to do as teacher? Then are the learners achieving the learning out? So you have a learning outcome specified for a course or specified for a lesson, then you can see how the students are progressing. Are they able to achieve those learning outcomes which have been planned for a particular lesson or a course? Then what are their, as you rightly said, strengths and weaknesses? So once you are assessing student performance, you are able to find out where they are excelling, which are the areas where they require additional inputs or they require additional practice or they require maybe there is supplementary material to attain those course outcomes. So you can identify their weaknesses, provide the corrective, and then you can improve upon the learning of the student. And at the same time, you can identify any specific learning difficulties which are experienced by the learner. So assessment helps you in identifying the causes or the reasons for poor performance in a particular course or in a particular lesson or in a particular program, and then identify what assistance is required by the learner. Maybe you need to refer the learner to a specialist to deal with the problem. Then to what extent the learning outcomes have been attained finally when we go for norm or criterion referenced. Here focus has to shift from norm referenced assessment to criterion reference. Then it is also used to assign grades to the learner. So when you want to classify A grade, B grade, C grade, D grade, E grade, or you are saying that student who has got more than 90%, 95%, 90, or you determine the percentile ranks of the learner and so on. So you can use this information for certification purposes. So assessment number of purposes, and it is not restricted only to improving learning on the part of the students, but it is also used to bring changes in the instructional process, because it provides feedback to the teacher whether the students are understanding, able to apply, or they are able to solve the problems, and teacher may try to find out that there is need to bring changes in the instructional strategies to enable the students to acquire those competencies. Then, as you rightly said, I think I hear you also said that assessment can provide feedback to the curriculum designer, because if there is, you find that as we have been looking at the polytechnic system, and we find that applied sciences, applied maths, applied physics, there is a large failure rate, high failure rate in these areas. And we have been stressing that we need to bring in change, but over the period of time, I saw that not much change has been brought in. Why? There is need, because if you are teaching applied physics, so it is where the physics is used in electrical engineering, in mechanical engineering, in civil engineering, in electronics, or in civil engineering. What we have been teaching is more focused on physics itself. So that is not what is required. So in the first year, the student who doesn't have much knowledge of electrical engineering or civil engineering or electronics engineer, do you think he'll be able to apply the concepts of mathematics to electrical engineering or civil engineering or mechanical engineering? So a base is required. So the sequencing of the subject may be changed. I don't know. The people who are teaching this subject, they know better, not me. But I'm convinced that the way it is sequenced and the way it is being taught in the institution, that itself requires a change. So curriculum planner gets the, or maybe over the years when you see sequencing, so what is the prerequisite for, say, Python language? Or maybe if we are going for the design thinking process, what exactly the previous knowledge that is required by the learner? So if that condition is not met, then there will be poor performance of the learner in the courses. Then assessment, let me again take your response first, how you have defined assessment here. And I find that looking to this, okay, there were many responses. Okay, chalo methods to term assessment. ये क्या हो गया? Okay, it is the process by information is gained relative to some known purpose or goal. Okay, assessing the overall performance and personality of student. Assessment seeks to determine how well students are learning. Now this is purpose when you are saying. Then if you're saying allows for systematic judgment about learning and process. Assessment is a process by which information is obtained, for making inferences regarding pupils' learning. Okay, defining, selecting, designing, gathering, analyzing, interpreting, using information to improve student learning. Okay, or attainment of course outcome. Assessment is systematic basis for inferences. So let me not go. I think we have got the answer here, which is available. Let me see what is at the end. The action or an instance of making a judgment, action of assessing, systematic process of judgment regarding students' performance, part of teaching learning, collect student data about student learning. So most of you have given the to check the performance. That is the purpose when you use it, check the performance. Refers to process of gathering and evaluating information. Okay, a process of evaluating student performance, that may be okay. So let me come to the definition here. So most of the people have given me the right that the variety of methods we use to collect information about the students' performance, that may be with respect to the abilities, traits which they bring to the classroom situation, or which may pertain to the level of learning or the attainment of the course outcomes, program outcomes, or lesson level outcomes. All those procedures, a combination of methods and techniques which we use, they are referred to as assessment. And assessment methods, you might have been, let me just take up this first, that there are variety of methods. So when we say written tests, we all know that written tests are one of the methods. And written tests can be open book examination or a closed book examination. For most of the courses, we are using closed book examination, where we are trying to give the question paper and test that. Open book examination, but as far as closed book examination, the problem is that it is, as I said in the beginning also, higher level abilities are not given due weightage. As I said, only 15 to 20% weightage goes to assessing application or applying and higher than applying level learning outcomes. And then we find that there are a number of drawbacks with respect to the quality of question paper which is being used. And more focus on closed, less focus on open book examination, where we try to design exercise or question in such a manner that a person doesn't get a ready-made answer from the book. There can be multiple right answer. When you say design a tool or design a technique or evolve a strategy, there may not be one right way of technique or right way of tool, but right way of evolving strategy. There may be 100 different ways of doing it. So person is giving you a novel solution to the problem, and that way the creativity and the problem solving skills, they get developed. But open book examinations are difficult to design, difficult to, maybe not amenable to all the subjects, not amenable to all the subjects. So when it comes to online learning environment, what is happening? Most of the tests which are conducted, written tests, they are computer graded, and we are making use of selection type items in most of the cases, less emphasis on supply type questions, because it becomes very time consuming job if you are getting 700, 1000, 2000 responses in the form of short answer or long answer questions or essay type questions. Then it is a very time consuming job on the part of the coordinator. So most of the time it is on the swim platform. When you come across a course in the online context, these are computer graded assessments which are used. Then the quizzes are there. Quizzes differ from the written test in the way they are smaller and they are based upon smaller content. Say whatever I have taught in the previous unit, that may be assessed by giving a small quiz on that, which may be taking 10 to 15 minutes in my class. And again, you can use different ways. Short answers, you can use true, false. Most of the, again, selection type, short answer type questions you can use in the quizzes. Then assignments. Assignments are there as one of the methods And whether it is on learning environment or it is contact, we are using assignments. And here, as I said, we are using assignment again in online learning environment, which are again computer graded rather than the coordinator or the instructor graded. So instructor graded assignments can be used provided there is ample time for the coordinator or the instructor to check. Term papers, we have again a form of written test. Sorry, here you can consider term paper not as a written test, but a comprehensive paper which is submitted by the student at the end of the semester, and this can be used in both the environments, the contact as well as online. Projects, yes, projects which are used to assess application and problem solving ability on the part of the learner. In addition to that, you can assess communication, you can assess creativity, you can assess ability to work in teams, you can assess the leadership quality of a person who's leading the group. So project, and these are some additional benefits of assessing student performance through projects. And even if you're offering online program, then also if you can make groups of teachers or groups of learners and assign them projects, they can submit that project at the end of the completion of the course, and that may become one of the basis for assessing learners performance. So projects can be used safely in case of online learning environment also. Situational tests, they are used by to assess some of these, maybe the leadership, the ability to work in teams, the problem solving, the decision making ability of the learner, and his attention or concentration which he can provide. So situational tests, as we see, they are in vogue for service matters. When people go for defense or air force, they are subjected to number of situational tests. So wherever it is applicable, we can think of, but in online environment, it becomes difficult to go in for situational tests. Then rubrics, certainly, because at present, there is a lot of subjectivity that creeps in into the process of assessment. So when you design rubric, that is, it's a scoring procedure which detail out the criterion performance indicators, and it also gives you how you are going to rate the performance of the learner, and it also provides you description of the performance of the student, when he is going to be labeled as excellent, very good, good, satisfactory, or poor. So that description is also available. So rubrics are where online program for assessing student performance through assignments, through projects. You can use rubrics to bring in more objectivity in your assessment. Then case studies, yes, they can easily be integrated into the online learning environment, case studies. So a course coordinator in different weeks can integrate case studies if the subject permits. So you can find out a relevant case to what you are teaching, provide that case to your learner, use it as an alternative to your assignment. So you are giving a case, or maybe if you are thinking of a course on research method, can we provide a thesis at master's level or at the PhD level to a student, assign a particular thesis, ask him to critically review that thesis and submit the review at the end of the course. And in the meantime, you will be teaching that particular. So he'll be putting a critique on that case. So you can think of bringing in variety into the assignments by linking, or you can have journal articles and you can integrate those journal articles in the relevant portion of your course, and ask the students to go through that journal article, and then there are questions which are posed at the end, maybe in the case study as well as journal articles. You can ask them to answer those questions at the end of, or put a critique on the journal article which they have been asked to, or review the article whether it is appropriate, using appropriate methodology, design, sample, experimental setup, and whether the conclusions were drawn appropriately. So for that matter, a rubric can be prepared and provided to the learners. Then you can see that dissertations and thesis, if it is a program, it's a master's degree program, or then you can think of integrating dissertation and thesis in that program. So it is applicable in online environment also. Presentations by the learners. So if you are using online program where you have certain synchronous activities, then, or maybe you can use a synchronous, ask the students, learners, to prepare a video presentation on a topic and submit that video presentation to the coordinator or the instructor, which is then evaluated. So it is possible, it saves a lot of time, actively involves the learners also. You can conduct a video viva voce in case of online examination rather than thinking of viva voce in a face-to-face as the interview is being conducted. Likewise, coordinator can think of involving expert to have a comprehensive viva voce, maybe at the end of the course, or maybe in between you can plan for a oral viva voce for the students. So that may be video using a technology and using that. Performance tests. Now, this may not be possible unless and until you have the arrangements for virtual labs, or you have a simulation and animation equipments available in the laboratory where the teachers, the learners are available. So here performance test cannot be administered in the online environment. Surveys, yes, we can conduct surveys of our present learners, of the alumni who have already attended and left the course, or the people who are working in the industry and we would like to survey them. Surveys can be easily integrated into any course. Interviews, again, can be conducted, maybe here online. So we can think of video interviews which can be focused group discussions, can also be organized if we are using synchronous mode and we divide our learners into small groups to go to different rooms, assigned a topic or an issue or a problem for discussion, and they come out with solution to the problem or resolving the issue, and so on. So you can see variety of method, and in addition to that you can see all these are active learning strategies. Think, pair, share, 1 minute, paper, muddy. I'm not going to discuss, but yes, these can be when you are using a synchronous, an expert, you are giving a session on one of the latest technology which has not been included, but you think it should be there, and you have used a synchronous mode for your learner. You can use these active learning strategies to actively involve your learners, and it acts as assessment tool also. Then blogs, students can be asked, learners can be asked to create their blogs, or they can be asked to create their video logs, so vlogs, as we find on the YouTube. So that can be integrated. Minor projects works, yes, can be given to the online learner. E-portfolios can be prepared as the student progress from week 1 to week 8 or week 1 to week 12. So e-portfolios can be prepared. Concept maps, maybe it's a task which can be given to the learner. And questioning, again, that will be possible in the self-learning material, or if it is a synchronous mode, questioning can be integrated. Role plays would be possible in synchronous modes. Seminars, yes, video recorded seminars, or maybe your students divided into groups can give a live seminar to other, which you call it webinars, or group discussions can be held. So you can see the methods which are there available and at present being used in contact mode can also be used to in the online environment. So here you can see that we find the methods which are primarily used, 93% of you say test. So this is most dominant method which is used for assessment in online as well as the offline mode. Then assignments, again 93% of you have said. Then if you look to 76.7, so quizzes are used in classes. 77% of you have said. Then we see 74% of you said you ask the students to make presentations. So these both are possible as far as the environment. Quizzes may not be. Quizzes becomes a part of your self-learning materials, or you can think of daily quiz, which is a very minor one before a person goes to the next unit to take a small quiz on that. Can be done. Okay. But presentations, yes, can be integrated, but at present in the online environment, their use is limited. Then we see 67% of you ask your students to give seminar. So in case of online environment, a webinar can be planned or recorded seminars can be used by the instructor. Then questioning, it is again where in the online environment, unless and until synchronous activity is going on, questioning will not be there, but it will be part of self-learning materials. Then when you look at 51%, so project work. So most of 55, sorry, there is group discussions which are held. So that is possible when you have a synchronous activity, different rooms are allocated to the different groups of the learners. That is possible. Project work possible hai. We can use minor as well as major project work. And then I find that performance tasks, because we are in a physical mode, we are using lab, workshop, field. So we are giving tasks to the students and we check their performance in the laboratories and the workshops. So performance tasks are part of our assessment procedures, which may not be possible to the extent they are possible in the contact mode. Online learning environment, only in case of where virtual laboratories, simulation, animation exercises, given simulation projects are given to the students, their performance tasks where they can do it in the lab, workshop. Virtual lab to accessible otherwise ho jayegi. They can do wherever they are and submit the project report or their lab report or workshop report to the instructor or the coordinator. So you can see most of the methods can be used in the online learning environment. Now the question arises, if these are the teachers must be familiar with that some of these methods are referred to as direct methods of assessment, others are referred to as indirect methods of assessment. Why do we refer these as direct methods of assessment? Now here, when you are giving a test, you are asking the student to do a case study analysis, you are asking the student to perform a task in the lab, it involves direct examination or observation of students' knowledge or skill. So wherever you ascertain the perceived, you ascertain the amount of knowledge or skill against the measurable learning outcome, that is direct assessment when you are observing. So assignment submitted by learner, case study report submitted, thesis submitted by the learner, test done by the learner, role play which is carried out, or a seminar given by the learner and being used to assess the performance of the learner, they all become part of direct assessment. And indirect assessment is one where we ask the students to express their perceived extent or value of learning experience. Now, when you conduct a survey of students, how to what is their opinion about the teaching effectiveness? What is their opinion about the methodology, media being integrated into the teaching learning process by the teacher, the techniques which are being, or in overall, you say teaching effectiveness, the student's opinion, or to what extent their knowledge has increased, or skills have improved, or the change in attitude has been there, or ability to solve problem, or ability to work in team, or ability to demonstrate leadership. All these come under the ambit of indirect assessment. Or when you ask the teacher to rate the learners, or give them rating from excellent to poor on various components of knowledge or skill or attitudes which they have acquired, again it is indirect assessment. Or you ask the industry personnel to rate the learners who are working with them on these knowledge, skills, and attitudes, it is again indirect assessment. Or you are taking a feedback with respect to the curriculum appropriateness, relevance of curriculum courses, or teaching from the alumni of your institution, it becomes an indirect assessment. Or you want to know to what extent your student possess the knowledge with respect to the latest technology which are in place in the industry, and you interview a few industry experts. This is nothing but indirect assessment. Now, coming to, forget it, types of assessment. So, types of assessment primarily can be categorized into four: formative assessment, summative assessment, placement assessment, and diagnostic assessment. Now, let me just use your information first, and we can see where you have said term assessment हो गया, formative, direct to the point. Oh, ज़्यादा हो गया. So the first final outcome with all possible conditions. Summative is okay. Formative is throughout the course evaluation, but summative is done at the end of the, okay. Then formative assessment during the learning process, okay. Summative is at the end. Correct. Used to monitor students' learning in order to give continued feedback. Instructor, teachers may use to enhance good. Summative assessment is utilized for the end educational unit to evaluate student learning by comparing it to some standard, okay. Formative assessment occur during the learning process. Good. So I think most of you have already explained during the process, end of the process. This is the major and fine. I think I find all the answers absolutely correct. Okay. Not you cannot say can study in details formative. Ye can study, who can study in details? I not clear from here. Students takes entire portions. Oh. Formative assessment will be able to know the concepts deeply, okay, maybe result in, okay. Consider overall, formative can happen as frequently as a right. Information gathered can impact one's teaching, right? So provides teachers with an overview of what students have learned, okay, good. Is learning during the course. Summative is how much they have acquired, okay. How they are learning, how much they are learning, fine. Good. Formative, ongoing aims to provide. So, thank you very much for your answers. And I need not elaborate on that. You clearly have given the right answer that when we talk in terms of formative assessment means that we try to gather data about the learning process during the process of teaching learning. Simple. That is, as the student is learning, we are trying to find out whether the student has rightly understood, whether the students can give examples, whether the students can detail out the procedure, whether the student can explain the theory, whether the student can apply the theory in a given situation. So it is assessment which is carried out during the process of teaching learning, and the purpose is to monitor the progress of the learner, how the student is progressing as far as the learning is concerned, whether he is able to keep pace with the teacher who's providing the input or keep pace with the activities which are being organized. And then the purpose is to identify strengths and weaknesses. And once you identify weaknesses, you are going to provide the corrective to the learner. So then the overall objective of formative assessment, which is also referred to assessment for learning, is to improve learning on the part of the learner. So immediate feedback is available to the learner, and he or she is able to implement the correctives and improve upon his performance. Likewise, a teacher who is getting a feedback that students are not able to understand a given concept or a given theory, so immediate feedback flows to the teacher that you need to re-explain the theory, or you need to change your method of instruction to explain the same theory so that students can understand, or you need to give more examples to exemplify, or you need to provide more supplementary material to your learner to make that particular theory more understandable. So here the immediate feedback is available and correctives are undertaken and improvement is made in the learning of the students. So formative evaluation in the context of online learning is possible. How it is possible, I'll come to that. And then summative assessment, you have rightly said, is carried out at the end of unit of instruction. Even your class test which you are giving, class test 1, 2, 3, they are examples of summative evaluation. And here you can see that at the end of the semester examination which is conducted, or annual examination which is conducted, that's a part of summative assessment. If you ask a student to submit a term paper at the end of the semester, that becomes a part of summative assessment, right? Or a project which is submitted at the end of the semester is a part of summative assessment, right? Then we try to find out to what extent those learning outcomes which were specified have been attained by the learner. And the purpose here of summative assessment is to grade or certify the learner. It is not identifying the strengths and weaknesses, but primarily to grade and certify the learner. And also we can determine the course effectiveness by taking the student opinion about the course, about the teaching effectiveness, and so on. And then it is the also summative assessment, maybe in terms of where you are going for the student survey at the end for the resources, etc., which were available in the campus and so on. So you are taking holistic evaluation of your resources. Then there is another kind of assessment which is referred to as placement assessment. So the purpose of placement assessment is to find out where the student need to be placed in the process of teaching learning. At present, what is happening online is that a course has been designed for say 8 weeks, week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And every student who registers for a course, he in a linear structure takes up the module 1 in week 1, module 2 in week 2, and so on, and week 1, week 2 leading to week 8, module 8. So everybody is following the same sequence. But there are people who already possess some knowledge with respect to the top course which you have designed. Maybe the person already has sufficient knowledge in research methodology. Now, if the person has sufficient knowledge, can I allow a person to take up only those part of the module, the course, which he has not mastered and he requires further instruction or he requires further input on that? So the purpose of placement, as we conduct entrance examination to determine the readiness of the learner and his suitability for a particular course, whether he is fit to be admitted in IIT, he is fit to be admitted in first year of engineering program, or he is fit to pursue module 1, fit to skip module 1, module 2 and go to module 3, or he can skip module 4 as we do in branching programming. Can we do that? So this is possible and this is required in online learning where you have diverse population coming in. So you have teachers or learners maybe having knowledge, and there may be a completely a novice who doesn't possess any knowledge in that area. A novice would pursue the modules in linear structure, but there is a facility available to those who already possess the knowledge, and they can, when you assess for module 1, if they have already mastered, they need not learn it. They go to module 2 pre-test. And module pre-test, again, if they have mastered, they can skip. If they do not meet the standards of mastery, then they pursue module 2 and so on. So the purpose of placement assessment is to determine where the student need to be placed in the process of teaching learning, whether it's fit for class 7, class 8, class 9, or likewise online learning, module 1, module 2, module 3, or you are, as you are giving flexibility to the learner who have done diploma, so they have lateral entry into engineering program, so they enter into second year. This is nothing but placement. You have given a parity. Then diagnostic assessment is where we would like to identify the causes for certain failures. Somebody showing poor performance repeatedly, then can we identify what is the reason, what is the cause, and we can take the remedial action and try to find. So this is limited but can be taken up. In many of you will see, if students are not able to pursue a particular course and there is a repeated failure, they leave the course, online learning. So motivation goes down because there are not many opportunities to interact with the coordinator or the instructor, or that doesn't happen where guidance is available on a frequent basis. But face-to-face contact mode, this assessment is more prevalent. Now let me just give you an idea. As the last presentation also I said that the SWIM platform uses 4 quadrants. So you have e-tutorial, you have e-content in terms of videos, etc. etc. This is e-tutorial, video content. E-content is learning material. Then you have course, discussion forum, and assessment. So here, let me come to assessment. You can inbuilt into the self-learning material. I'll just give you, just have a look at that. We can use computer graded assessments. We can use constructor or coordinator checked assignments. We can also use peer assessment in case of online examination. We can use on-site examination as have been doing for the NIT modules, or NTA has been doing for all the programs offered on the SWIM platform. You have a designated center and students appear in the examination at that center. Or as during the COVID, we have shifted to the technology enabled assessment, so proctored examinations, they have come into play a big role. Now here you see RM 4.1. So I'm just giving you example where we can use this. Oh, क्या हो गया? हाँ जी, so you see, check this is being how this gets implemented. क्या हुआ? हाँ जी, oh, यहाँ learning नहीं आया, okay, खुला तो था, हाँ जी. So you see, this is one of the modules in the course on research in technical education as well as creative problem solving, innovation and meaningful R&D. So this is a module where you have a learning outcomes, you have the introduction built up, why research is descriptive research and what type of questions can be answered. And then you see, after giving this small input, there is a practice task. So explain the purpose of descriptive research. Which of the following questions can be answered through descriptive research? So here you will see that self-learning material consists of small practice tasks. Now this is nothing but part of formative assessment of student learning, and after they attempt the task, immediately feedback is provided to the learners. So the correct answer is given here. They can compare their answer with the feedback, and if they are not satisfied, they can look back to the instructional input and then attempt the practice task again, and then can go for they can learn and improve upon their performance. So total module which is available. So another topic, sub part of this module is types of descriptive research. Again, you will see dealing with the different types of research which are in descriptive. Then there is again a practice task. Then there is again a feedback which is available to the learner. So this acts as a formative assessment for the learner. This is not part of the summative evaluation, but a part of formative evaluation. So SLM, even when you are writing text, you are providing input. Again, you can raise few questions before giving answer to those questions. That means before providing the input, certain questions can be raised. Why do you think creativity is essential for the learners of 21st century? Now then you are writing 21st century is characterized by VUCA and so on, and you are explaining all those things. So while you are developing the material, there can be inbuilt questions which arouse thinking on the part of the learner, and they may try to answer that question before they proceed with the input on that particular unit. So inbuilt question in the text itself can act as a formative assessment for the learner. Then when it comes to here, you can see computer graded assessment is possible in case, and these are widely used in the programs, the courses which are offered online. So here you can see that a dashboard of a particular course looks like that. So once you enter as a coordinator or instructor, you will come across that you can go to the dashboard. And here you see create. So an instructor can create questions. He can create question groups, and he can also go in for announcements and etc. So here you see what happens if I have to create questions. When I click on the questions, I am taken to this window where it is written whether you want to add multiple choice, you want to add short answer, you want to add numerical, you want to upload a file which contains the question, or you want to add numeric array. So here, when I try to add, because most of the courses which I am coordinating, it is multiple choice. So you can see here that I'm just giving you an example from the dashboard of my course, that When you click on add multiple choice question, then you are taken to a window like this. So you can add a state here, the question. Question means if I say uh, research on the basis of purposes of research can be classified into, or I can say, no, sorry, which of the following is not a type of research category classified on the basis of purpose? And then if I give this, then I need to give the choices. So choice one, so I write action research. Choice two, then I write the basic research. Then third, I write applied research. Fourth, I write the descriptive research. So the right answer is clicked. So here you can see the right answer you need to click. So you can also provide feedback to your learners. So for that matter, every why this question is not right or this choice is not right or wrong, even that can be entered in this. So one can use that. So then after you have added questions, you need to create the question groups. So here when you can see, once I have entered say 20 questions, so at the end of the week, I would like to include all 20 or I would like to include only 10. So I can make a selection out of the 20 which 10 need to go to. So I create a question group where I just go on adding the number of the question which need to be entered, and I need to indicate the weight which need to be given to a particular question. So that is done. So question groups can be added. And then finally, under the dashboard only, create content, there is the unit 9, the last unit, which refers to graded assessment. So I can go to the create assessment here. Assessment, you can see the second assessment. So I click on that, a new assessment window will open. Then I'll write below are 10 statements, or this is what you need to do. So I give a instruction to the learner. I add the question group number and that assessment, and then I finalize the date which need to be, end date kya hai, whether it is open for 1 day, whether it is open for a week's time, whether it's open for 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, that. So either a person can give multiple responses or he has to give only one submission, even that is indicated. So this is how computer graded assessments are used. You can add a subjective assessment and then you need to check yourself. And as I said, if the numbers are large, then subjective assessment becomes a problem. I know I have been doing it for earlier courses, 10 to 15 days, and you have to spend almost 8 to 10 hours each day to assess the subjective assessments given by. But the difficulty I experienced in subjective assessments was that most of the teachers, they copied from each other. So one person has completed, he has distributed it to others, and every other person was submitting the same assignment. So many a times I have to say, write it, copied, because I don't know who has copied, so I could not assign 0 to the person. I only wrote copied, provided the feedback that it has been copied, whether he has copied or somebody else has copied. So here you can see instructor checked assignments, and there is a tab here, review assignment. So when we click on this, we are, there are for the subjective assignment given, but otherwise when I click on that, I get the number of students who have made the submission, and there is also another row which shows how many of those assignments have been checked. So once the instructor starts checking, it is progress is being shown to the instructor. Then we have another assessment. When we talk in terms of formative assessment, you can see As an assignment, one can use case studies, one can use journal articles, because say for example there are a research paper only, so I have collected journal article, I have handed over those journal article to the learners to read and then answer few questions on the basis of their study of journal articles. So, or they can critically review the journal article with respect to descriptive, correlational, or experimental research. And then I had standard answers available with me, or I had also asked the students, given a problem, and asked them to write the objectives and hypotheses for the given study. Just it was a hypothetical study taken by me, and then they were to write the objectives and hypotheses. So this kind of assignment need to be taken up by the learner. Then we have the end examinations, which are conducted each course. So there are two types of examinations which are available. On-site examination, that is, there are centers which are established by the NTA, National Testing Agency, and the teachers are asked to register for examination, and based upon the number of students who have registered, they fix up the centers in various cities, and the date sheet schedule is given by the CA. So on-site examinations are very much in thing, and there I found some of the students face difficulty. Then during the COVID time, we have seen that online examination was introduced. So even in the colleges where we could not go in for physical examination of our students, then we went in for online examination. And many of the institutions have procured system. So for online evaluation, this is essential, and it in comparison to on-site examination, where you have your admit card, your photograph is there, signatures of the appropriate authority are there. In case of online examination, student authentication has to be done, right? So video authentication is there with respect to the admit card which was issued, and somebody is monitoring that. Remote proctored examinations, that means somebody, so artificial intelligence being used to, and here I share some of the problems which the learners have faced. They said fidgeting. So there was problem. Many of the students initially their examinations were cancelled because the camera, they were not facing the camera, they were looking at somewhere else, there was noise in the room, noise coming from outside, or maybe the system found that person was shuffling the papers and so on. I don't know. These are some of the difficulties which were faced, and some of the students had their examination cancelled. So remote proctored examination is required. Otherwise, what happens, you don't know whether they are referring to the resources. In that case, open book examination. That means you have examination where all questions are of high difficulty level with no one right answer. You can use this online examination, or you can even give them home, carry home examination. They can do the test, submit it when they have completed the test. Or if you want to monitor, then proctored examination can be held for that person. And you require a very secured browser to appear in the examination. This is basic workflow which is available from one of the sites I've taken up. I think it's not needed to explain this, but I would say in addition to that, for online learning environment, we have tools which somebody might have taken up or somebody is likely to take up. So one can see Google. So here you can see I myself has used a Google form, right? I've used it for task. You can use it for course evaluation. I just give you example maybe at the end. So Google provides you flexibility. Likewise, Google Classroom has inbuilt capacity to create assessments. So teachers who are using online learning tools, they can use Google Classroom, have assessment done by the Google Classroom platform itself. Chalkboard is another operating, sorry, this is software which you can use. Then Moodle, you can create assessments of different types. And I myself was trained way back in 90s when Colombo Plan Staff College conducted a program on Moodle at NITTTR, and we had all undergone that media design program. There we used Moodle because they have put all the learning material on Moodle. They have assignments created on the Moodle and so on. You can use polls everywhere. I think you're familiar with these things. I'm not going to highlight on this, but polls everywhere, even when you're using a synchronous activity in the online environment, you can use polls. Like, say, for example, I want to ask, how many would you prefer to use 5G than 4G? Maybe electronics class. So, are you in favor of 4G or 5G? Simple poll. How many people are in favor of 4G or 5G, right? Or maybe polls. How many are in favor of face-to-face teaching and online teaching? Polls everywhere. Quizzes. So quizzes are another software which is available to create quiz, which can be used as formative assessment tool, right? Or could be used as the end semester or end examination. Also, you can create a quiz of a higher difficulty. Assessment generator is another tool which is available. Class marker, Edmodo is also there. Then video interviews, Eva Assess is a tool which is available. iMooka is for checking the aptitude and the technical skills of the people. That is available. Platform is available. Sorry, Chalkboard platform. So ProProf is another. Kahoot you are familiar with. There may be many others which I'm not familiar with. I've only used few of them, and I think you can use all these tools to economize, to be more objective, and you can use it for formative as well as summative assessments of the students, right? And here, let me just, before I go to this one, let me just give you an idea of links which I have here. You can see here. Okay. So here you can see that this is pre-assessment, which you have the task. Now, say this is online learning environment, and I'm going to provide the input on the assessment. So I designed this kind of a questionnaire, and I give answers to that. I can use it as pre-assessment. Or if you can see here, there is post-assessment. Yeah. Now say this is a post-test which has been created, which is to be given at the end of module 4. Say it was after 4 weeks. This was to be given to the learners. So it consisted of 40 questions. So 4 units have been covered, 40 questions were there, and this can be used, as you can see here, post-test. It can be used as a pre-test also. If you give the same test before giving an input, you can find out how many of them have. So say for example, I say 80% score. If they are 80% score is there, they can go to module 2, or they can directly go to week number 5. So maybe I can give this as a pre-assessment, find out how many students reach that mastery level of 80, and those students can skip this study and go to the next module. So you can, in the online environment, one can go in for Hanji. We can use these assessments for pre-assessment. Okay. I think I made a mistake. Okay, links. This is the one. Or you can use it as a formative assessment. So if you are having a synchronous activity, so for that matter, any task you can use formative assessment, you can use for. Then you can use survey forms. Now here you can see the example that I have designed course evaluation performer. So course evaluation, here you just have a look at, because that is closed, so it is not giving me. So here you can course evaluation निकाला तो था. हाँ जी. Now say this kind of course evaluation performer I designed for my module, and at the end of the MOOC on research in technical education, all the learners were requested to rate the various components of the aspects of the course on a 5-point scale. So this was carried out, and then the feedback was utilized to bring in few changes in the module. So here you can say another was, I asked them to the problems which they faced during the module and their suggestions to improve upon. So write 3 to 4 suggestions for improvement of the module. So this was used, and then the feedback was available to the instructor. Now here you can see these are, for example, the tasks which you can use during the formative assessment, pre-assessment, post-assessment. So I have been using Google Forms frequently, but others things. Now here you can see All India Council for Technical Education. So you can see Parak. If it opens up, I can just show you Parak. So where students and teachers alike can evaluate their knowledge, skills, and attitudes and their competencies. So a learning assessment you can see here. So we don't need to learn. Maybe you are all familiar with this. Here you can see AICT SLA project is designed to measure the benchmark levels and gains in academic and aptitude skills by students in technical program, and to understand the various factors that affect skill development student in technical institutions across India. Even this can be taken up by teachers also, right? So courses you can see here are available whether you belong to computer science, engineering, you belong to electronics, mechanical, civil, etc., and one can use this, right? And then online environment you can see बहुत ज़्यादा खुल गए हैं. Okay. Here you can, the NTA you are all familiar with. NTA is a national testing agency which is conducting tests, entrance examination, end-term examination, recruitment tests, and also SWIM, any course which is offered on SWIM platform, NTA is conducting the test. So they are utilizing the services of coordinators, instructors, experts in designing the test, and then they are conducting the test, both proctored as well as the centered test. So you can see, I hope you are familiar with this. And online examination, this is available. Then you have here, you Meritech, you can personality assessment and so on. So online assessment, you can see Meritech is doing a good job. So online assessment, they are doing many assessments, standardized assessments they are carrying out. So this is where I think in the online learning environment which we can be used. And here the more you are getting involved in the process, the more awareness would be there. So I think assessment concept, once it is clear, the variety of methods which we use, and these methods can be classified into direct and indirect. It's clear. and they serve wide variety of purposes. So formative for monitoring the performance, identifying the weaknesses and strengths, providing the correctives, and then you are able to improve upon the learning. Summative is primarily to grade, to certify, to determine the course effectiveness, right? And any good assessment, I think it is time. So let me not, but just to end up, any good assessment would be categorized by these five. In addition to this, you can add transparency. So validity, whether the test measures what it intends to measure. Now, if I'm preparing a achievement test in soil engineering, all the questions will be from the content of soil engineering rather than from the hydraulics or structures. So one has to look into whether the content is relevant. And another thing one has to look into is whether all learning outcomes find a place in the test. So validity means with respect to content, learning outcomes, coverage, from remembering to creating. So all the 6 levels, if there are learning outcomes, so whether there is appropriate weightage given to them, and then one can look into the whether the wording which has been used, it conveys the message to the learner. That is validity. Another is there are no mistakes in the question framing. That increases the validity of the question paper. Then reliability. Reliability refers to dependability of your assessment. Can we depend upon? Now, when the students come to us after 12th, we say, you have got 95% marks, but the basics are not clear. So it is very difficult to rely on that kind of assessment. So reliability refers to, is there consistency of scores from one administration to another, or can we depend upon those scores? And reliability is to simply explain if more than one examiner examines the answer scripts or assignments or assess the project work, then there should not be significant discrepancy between the two assessments. There should be high correlation between the two sets of scores. Inter-rater reliability. Or if a same examiner assess the same project, the same assessment, assignment, the same answer script, again, there should be high correlation between the two sets of scores. Or we say that the relative position of the learner should not significantly vary. That means a person who is at 99th percentile rank should not slip down to 10th percentile rank. He can be 99th, can be 97, 96, 95 or 94, but he cannot slip to 10th percentile rank. Reliability. Then objectivity, the greater the objectivity in scoring, the higher will be the reliability. So if you are having a computer graded question 1010, they are the most objective one. Otherwise, rubric can provide you that tool to bring in more objectivity in scoring of anything. Then practicality. Whatever you are planning, you are able to implement that. So if I want to take the video interview, conduct the video viva voce of my all students, and there are 10,000 students, so think how much time would be required. Is it feasible to have 10,000 students interviewed or conduct a viva voce with 10,000 students? Not a feasible one. Then utility. Can I utilize the result of assessment? So if you are carrying out any assessment and you are not utilizing that assessment for analyzing the strengths and weaknesses or taking the appropriate correctives, then that assessment is of no use. So every assessment needs to be utilized for bringing improvement either in learning, ultimate is learning on the part of the learner, attainment of learning outcomes, and maybe the indirect is improving the teaching learning process, improving the curriculum, improving the availability of resources, and so on. So here I end. Thank you very much.